Welcome to Hoselink's Gardening Masterclass. Come with me and I'll show you in detail the key things you should be doing in your garden this winter to ensure a great spring and summer ahead. Fruit tree pruning is one of my favourite things to do. And now that it's winter, all of the leaves have gone and our tree has gone into dormancy, which basically means it's gone to sleep, it's the perfect time to get pruning. So today I thought we'd go through some little tips and tricks about how we do it, why we do it, and how to ensure we have a bumper season ahead. Before pruning, it's really important to make sure our tools are sharp and clean. This will ensure we get a nice clean cut, which will heal quicker and invite less pest and disease in. It also means you'll transfer less pest and disease from a previous tree or a previous cut. And I know that might sound a little bit funny, but there's microscopic germs all over your blade. So this mix here is 80% methylated spirits, 20% water. And I find that gives you a great clean with no fuss. So just give him a nice little wipe and we're good to go. Pruning our fruit trees in winter is all about setting them up for a bumper season ahead. It helps them focus the energy into the branches you want, which in turn gives you bigger, better fruit. And it also helps prevent pest and disease, which is great for the tree, but it's obviously really good for us too, because it means we have to use less insecticides and pesticides. The first step we do is to remove deadwood. In the case of this tree, we don't actually have any deadwood that I can show you, but what I can do is show you how to test if it is dead or not. Come with me. So you can just get your secateurs and just peel a little bit of the outer bark off. And if it's nice and yellow and green like that, then it's alive. If it is dead, it'll be really brown and quite woody and harder to peel the bark off. The next step is to remove any of the inner branches or any branches going toward the center. You can imagine with all of these branches covered in foliage, there's no sunlight and no airflow can get through, which will increase the pest and disease. This tree in particular has got quite a few, so we're gonna get in there and remove a fair few of them. It'll look significantly different, but trust me, it's the right thing to do. There's lots of these little branches on this one in particular. It's quite satisfying actually, I love doing it. So this tree here that we're pruning is an apple. A lot of fruit trees do look similar and can be hard to tell, especially when they've got no foliage on them. You can tell how clear the center's already looking. Much more airflow and sunlight already. You can see this guy here, it's growing toward the center. Let me take him off. The end result with this, once we're done at the end, it'll look kind of like a goblet or a vase. And that means the whole center's empty and all the fruit's on the outside, so it's easy to get to, easy to pick. You don't have to climb into the center of the tree. Okay, so now we've cleared out the center and the tree looks quite different already, but now we have to focus on the outside. And like I mentioned earlier, we want it to look like a vase. So we have to tidy up these leggy bits. And when we do it, we want to cut back so there's 2 buds left. It's really important not to cut off our fruit spurs. This is where they flower and where all the fruit is produced. So if you come in closer, I'll show you what they look like. You can see here, this is a fruit spur. See how it's a little bit swollen and it's got the wrinkles on it? That's because it's a few years old. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, but this is where all the flowers will be produced and therefore fruit. As opposed to this little guy here, it's quite skinny, it's got a bud on it still, but that won't produce any fruit. If you're unsure, just leave it, because in the future it will turn into a spur and you will get fruit off it. When we're pruning all these outer leggy ones, you can see on this guy, for example, here's the older wood here, and then you go up 2 buds and you cut about 5 mil above the second bud. That way it gives it a good foundation to create a fruit spur in the future. And if you cut it too long out here, you'll end up with a massive tree. If you want to net your trees, for example, to protect it from birds, or if you don't want to have to get a ladder out to get your fruit off your tree, it's just so much more practical to have a manageable tree, you know. If they get left, you can see how much growth they put on each year. So if they get left for even a year or two, they can become a really, really hard to manage tree. And then you have to get the chainsaw out and go a bit more savage, and that way you can lose a couple of years of fruit by having to cut so harsh. This tree here would be about 15 years old. Another thing we want to do is, you can see here, see how that branch there is rubbing on the other branch? That's eventually going to thicken up, and then that'll cause a lot of trouble because they'll rub against each other. They'll take the bark off, they'll become weak, they'll invite pest and disease. So you really do have to try and keep the trees clear from rubbing. And they have, like I said before, they have so much new growth that sometimes you have to be a bit brutal. See, this one here, that's rubbing against this guy, so I'm going to take that whole section off. Now we've finished that, we have to reduce the height. And you want to pick a height that's manageable for you. This is about the height I'm going to go for myself. That means all the fruit should be from this height and down. If you don't cut these big canes, eventually you'll have the fruit up in the sky and you won't be able to reach it. It'll be pointless, the birds will get it, you won't be able to net the tree. So it will be a savage cut and it looks a bit odd, but trust me, it's the right thing to do. So I've put the secateurs away and I've grabbed the loppers. It's much easier to reach these upper branches and they're also a bit thicker, so it's just easier to cut all around. You can imagine by cutting all of these canes off how much energy you're saving the tree. That way it can focus all of its energy into the branches you want and in turn the fruit. Just be careful they don't hit you on their way down. If you have had a problem with pest and disease in the past, an extra step that you can do is to spray the whole tree with lime sulfur. That'll kill any existing pest and disease the tree has and give it a really fresh start for the next season. But do be careful though, because it absolutely stinks. So maybe wear your old clothes in a mask. So that's it, we've pruned our fruit tree. We've removed all the deadwood, we've cleared out the center, we've shaped the outside, and we've respected those fruit spurs whilst reducing the height. So next year should be a bumper season. Let's talk about soil and why we need to protect it through winter. Soil is the life force of your garden, so it's super important that we look after it. Today I'm going to show you 3 tips that will ensure your soil is as healthy as possible. Let me go and get step 1. So our first step is organic compost. This stuff is amazing for improving the structure of your soil, and if we put a covering over the soil of around 3 centimeters, that'll really help. The next step is trusty old cow manure. Cow manure is great for improving structure like the compost, but it also is packed full of nutrients. So we want to spread it out to around 3 centimeters, the same as the compost. So now we've put down our organic compost and our cow manure, which is great for soil structure and packed full of nutrients. But it's also super important for our microorganisms living under the soil. Now, what are microbes? They're these microscopic life forms that live under your soil that help break down all of your compost, your mulch, your fertilizers, and turn them into a soluble form so your plants can access them. Without microbes, your soil is basically dead. Your plants rely on them so heavily, so it's really important that we look after them. So the next step is to mulch your soil, and I recommend doing it around about 5 centimeters thick. If it's a little bit thicker in some areas, it doesn't matter so much. It's always a good idea to water in your garden beds after you've mulched it. This will help wash the mulch dust off the foliage, but also help lock the mulch in. And the fact that we put the compost and the cow manure in too, we want to soak that so it seeps down into that soil. And it goes without saying we don't want to overwater our gardens in winter because the plants aren't taking up anywhere near as much water and the sun is far less harsh. Now we've covered how to look after your soil in winter, let's go inside and check out indoor plants. So winter is here, and while we're indoors snuggling up to our blankets and sipping on our hot chocolates, our indoor plants need a little bit of extra love. So I thought we'd go through some things like humidity, watering, sunlight, fertilizing, pest and disease, and some other tips and tricks to give our indoor plants the love they deserve. Let's start with light. Now, being winter, the sun is much weaker and out for far fewer hours. and this isn't good news for our indoor plants. So what we can do is move our plants to a north-facing window so they get more light exposure. It may upset the style of your house, but trust me, it's what's best for the plants. Now, if you don't have enough room in front of a north-facing window for all of your plants, or you don't want to upset the style of your house, you can buy a grow light, which is a specially designed UV light for indoor plants, and they actually work really well. Now, temperature. It's really important to keep our plants away from cold drafts that may come from under doors or poorly insulated windows. It's really important to keep them away from fires, heaters, and air conditioners, as they really dry out the air and can make your plants super stressed. The perfect temperature for a plant is between 18 to 24 degrees. Winter watering is a tricky one. Obviously, our plants still need some water to survive, but they don't need anywhere near as much water as in the warmer months when they're growing. The golden rule is to peel back 2 to 3 centimeters of the topsoil, and if it's dry underneath, give it a little water. And because our plants are little princesses, they prefer room temperature water. If you give them cold water, it can send their roots into a bit of shock. Whilst we're talking about watering, overwatering is the most common mistake people make through winter, and it can lead to root rot, especially if your pots don't have any drain holes. And most indoor pots don't have drain holes. So trust me, it's best to err on the side of caution and underwater, because it's much better for your plant to be thirsty than for it to be drowning. Dry air is another problem we come across in winter, especially if you are using some form of heating. So with all of our indoor plants being tropical, they love humidity, and ideally they want it between 40 to 60%. The best fix is to buy a humidifier, but if you don't want to buy one or don't already have one, another little trick is to cluster all of your plants together, and they'll create their own little microclimate, which in turn creates humidity. Another trick with humidity, especially if you don't have a heap of plants you can group together, you get a tray, make sure it's waterproof, don't use anything like terracotta because that will seep through. Then you fill it with rocks, then top it up with water, and you simply just sit your plant on top of that, and as the water evaporates, it will create its own little humid environment, and your plant will love you for it. You can also mist the leaves, but be careful not to do it too much or too often, because we don't want water sitting on the leaves in the cooler weather. With feeding, obviously our plants aren't growing all that quick in winter, so they don't need that much food. But what we can do is give them a diluted liquid feed every month or so, and this will give them that gentle boost and keep them ready for when spring comes. Now, winter isn't the best time to repot your plants unless it's absolutely necessary. But what we can do is check our soil to see if it's holding on to water for too long or if it's compacted. Just push it down with your hands, or you may have noticed in the past that it's holding a lot of water. If so, you can use a chopstick or a skewer or even a screwdriver, to be honest, and you can aerate the soil by going around and just giving it a little wiggle like this, and that will help with drainage and aeration and help the roots a lot. There's no denying that in winter our plants are slightly weaker, and with that brings uninvited guests. And the 3 worst culprits, I would say, are spider mites, which are those little black dots on the underside of the leaf. You may even see a little web there, and on the top of the leaf it's all mottled and discoloured. The second offender is mealybugs. They're the woolly white little things that are on the stem of the plant, sometimes on the leaf, but they can really cause some damage too. And then third, the worst offender of them all, is fungus gnats. These are those tiny little white flies that buzz around the top of your plant and seem impossible to get rid of. When it comes to prevention, one of the best things you can do is make sure you keep the leaf surface on top and bottom and the stem wiped with a wet cloth. I know that might sound a little bit odd, but trust me, it really does work. But if the inevitable happens and you do get some pests, I recommend using either Eco Neem or Eco Oil, as these are a much safer spray, and with the plants being indoors, I think that's just the best option for all of us. Fungus gnats, they are the worst of all, and I'm sure you've tried to get rid of them. But these are my tips and tricks which should help you get rid of them. First, I go with the sticky traps. They don't look great, but they do work. The little gnats fly around and stick to them, and once they've stuck, they can't get off. The second thing you can do for fungus gnats is cover the top of the potting mix with a small gravel or a sand, and this will make it much harder for them to lay their eggs. The third thing you can do on the same vein is you can peel back the top 3 centimeters of the potting mix and replace it, and hopefully that will remove a lot of eggs that they've laid. If none of this works, there is a more extreme thing we can do, and that's filling a bucket with diluted neem oil, taking the whole plant out of its pot and soaking the root ball. This should hopefully kill all of the gnats and all of the eggs, and when you pot it back up, your problem should be solved. And one final tip is to make sure we rotate our plants once every few weeks to ensure the whole plant gets equal sunlight. Now if you notice some yellowing leaves or slow growth, don't worry, that's just winter. I hope you enjoyed learning that with just a little bit of effort, your indoor plants can look lush and vibrant all winter long. If you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in the next masterclass, leave them in the comments. Happy gardening.